Peace, greetings, everyone. Peace and welcome to our new fellowship. I am Sister Morea.
And I'm Safta Ahava.
All right. So, for those of you all who are coming in, greetings and welcome to our second build of the Gregorian, right? This is our second annual fellowship build. And it is wonderful to be here seated alongside Safta Ahava. I appreciate having that opportunity to build and share space with you. Um, we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to just quickly acknowledge the presence of Akoti Yafe and friends and sisters and Master Menyelek. Greetings and thank you for being in the space and thank you for being prompt and moving in one accord, right? I'm going to open up with a just a few words of affirmation. I give thanks and praise to the most holy one of creation, the Most High, for giving us the opportunity to share space and to build bonds and to create friendship, right? And to create friendships and to create bonds that are family bonds that go deeper than just blood family bonds, right? Because you don't always, everybody doesn't get an opportunity to have that, right? And to be honest and stay true to that. So I give honor and reverence to the most holy one of creation, to Yah for creating the vision of Anu and instilling and pouring that vision into Chief Yuya, who has remained steadfast in making sure that vision manifests and making sure that vision, we stay firm on that vision, and
Mhm.
that vision is constantly creating a nurturing and supporting supportive environment for us so that we can extend our hands to everyone else who joins us here, whether it's in the clubhouse or here on Shima,
Mhm.
because you hearing you all who hear those words, you're moved by it, and you're able to see the light of the Most High in Anu itself, and you're able to move off of that and select and choose based on what you see, based on what you hear, and based on what you know of us. So we give thanks for the opportunity to be able to build and share the mission of the Most High through this space, because that is what we're doing. And if we don't know, now we know.
That's right.
Now we know.
That's
Now we
right.
know.
That's right. And it is awesome to be in this space. There's no place else I'd rather be on the beginning of this Sabbath evening. And this week was really, really amazing from beginning to the start. The whole strong has been powerful. And I rejoice to be able to experience such a build and just the knowledge of everything that we're given. Um, and this strong, as she mentioned in the blog earlier, it talked about community. And
Right.
um, in the community, it was said that one of the scriptures that was listed was Psalms 133, which is, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity." And it brings me to also Second Timothy, which Second Timothy, first 1:7, it talks about, "For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind," which is going to take us into our bill for tonight. But before we do, I'm just wondering how everybody's doing. And how is your strong? Did you overeat like I did? Because there's so much on my plate when it comes to a new. I'm constantly feeding on all that we have. Um, so I'm just wondering how everybody's doing. As we talked about community in the blog, also in our study group, it was really awesome that we also talked about Psalms 139, 23 and 24, where we talked about searching the heart and judgment and, you know, looking at our wicked ways, which is another thing about a beautiful community. When our community judges in love to help us grow so that we can see the things that are good and the things that we need to change. So everybody let me know in the chat how you doing.
All right. You heard, Safta. All right. I'm just going to jump in and greet the other beautiful guests and beautiful people who have joined us so far. I see Miss Cindy Jones. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom to you. Darian Lampley. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Darian. Anu Radio. Welcome. Imanaya. Welcome. Ima Yakira Eden. Welcome. 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 Anu Radio says that it was a wonder filled strong, and she says thanks after. I don't know. You could see her. I'm sure you can see her comments down below, right?
Mhm.
I'll say, like I'll
Yes.
come in and I'll say this strong was one of those strongs. I work with youth, and I have to say, sometimes you need to take a break. So I had to take several breaks. I think I shared this some strongs ago too, maybe a couple months ago. Um, Sometimes it isn't overwhelming. It's just looking at the students' challenges sometimes and seeing how much work is required and how much time has been lost. Just how much time has been lost is also a crucial piece. So, this strong has been full. It was
Yes. Yes.
full and but also full of gratitude, full of
Yes.
observations, but filled with gratitude. And I give thanks that I was able to find a place to just quietly go into self and read scripture and recalibrate, right? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming. But to get to the point where you're overwhelmed, that's not what we're charged to do. We should be
That's
able
right.
to stand on a square, and we have tools to help keep us in place, and keep us on a square. So I'm glad I was able to use those during the strong. Greetings, Abba Heru. Welcome. Greetings. Imanaya says it was a beautiful, emotional, strong, full of productivity and community support. Be Anu. Yes, indeed. Be it.
Yes.
Be it. Be it. Do it. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned Safta, you wanted to say something?
Well, no, I was just thinking when Imanaya was talking about the community. Once again, everything this week has talked about unity and community. And one of the other things that came to mind about the blog of this strong was that we have to include each other in our visions and our goal settings because that's where support comes from. We're there to support one another as we grow together. If there's a need, when we're in a community, that need, we provide for each other in many, many different ways. So when she talked about support, it made me think about that.
Yeah, like that support is a key piece, right? It's a key piece because when and if we say family, right, that's
Hmm.
kin. And kin means there's a relationship there, and we're
That's
talking
right.
about kingdom, right? And we're talking about from the perspective of kingdom builders. So just that idea of kin inside of that word kingdom identifies that there is a relationship, right? And that relationship is spiritual. It is deeper and goes beyond just that blood connection.
That's right.
Um, I think it's significant when you mention um that Psalm 136 and it speaking of searching one's heart, you know,
139.
139 rather, pardon. That searching is crucial because it means that it's calling us to judge each other too.
That's
Like
right.
it's really speaking about, how we're examined by the creator, you know. We also have to consider, and we're charged to consider too, that what occurs above occurs below, as above, so below. So that
Yes.
law of
Yes.
correspondence is really crucial. So to understand that there's an examination of oneself by Yah, by the Most High, that's also reflected here too. There will be and should be that same examining um, of self by community, and it's helpful because we can't see, like we can't always see. Sometimes we ignore it too because we're told.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
we
We do.
ignore it too because we're told, but sometimes we can't see. We don't know the impact that we're having. And I think that's part of our conversation this evening and our topic for this evening, fearlessly moving forward,
That's
right?
right.
That moving forward fearlessly has a lot to do with knowledge and knowing, right?
Right. That's right.
We'll talk a little bit more about knowledge and knowing and faith, but we are required to fearlessly move as a community in one accord, right? And that
That's
that
right.
that um that one accord is a big deal. It's a big piece.
Yeah. And it moving forward in life, it requires a mindset that it requires a mindset that allows you the power to move into the unknown, because most of the time when we're fearful, it's about things we have no knowledge about, things we don't know, that cause us to hesitate, cause us not to, you know even when it comes to growing and when it comes to challenges. If we are fearful in our challenges from day to day life, we get stuck. So fearlessly moving forward is something that is really necessary in order to grow. And there's so many times I can think that time was wasted when I wasn't fearless. And the reason I wasn't fearless is because I didn't know. And that knowledge you spoke about was not present.
Right.
For example, I remember when I was thinking about retirement, it was like 3 years ago. And I worked for 42 years, and I couldn't imagine what it would be like if I wasn't working for somebody else. And at first you come up with all these excuses. Well, the money, well, this, well, that. Well, what am I going to do? And you think about, even in Mind Heart Words, Chief's book, he talks about how sometimes it's like the fear of, once you reach a goal, you wonder, now what next? What am I going to do
Right.
next? And that's where I was stuck. Is, well, what about after this? So the doubt, the unknowing. But coming into this community, once I started seeing and thinking that there's so much more to life than punching a clock for somebody else, a different vision was introduced. So the fear began to fade, and a knowing came alive, and that kind of diminished that fear. So that was a really good experience for me, to
Right.
walk outside of what I didn't know. And it also led to a building of faith. So that was all a part of it.
When do you know typically that maybe you're leaning on fear? And like what are some of the things that you do to check yourself? Like when you are sorry, when you find yourself kind of shifting or moving into that space or that mindset, because some of it is mind too, right?
Right. And you have to think of what the definition of fear is. It's an unpleasant emotion that's caused by the belief that something or someone is going to hurt you, that it's dangerous, that it's a threat. you know um, and these things are usually, you know they come when you don't know. They come without a cause. I mean, it's like in the mind. You create this wonderment of, well, what about, or what if? And
Right.
it's not even a reality when it's first created in your mind. So you have to really think about why you're in fear. So I'm curious to know, um, if anyone knows, how does it, how do you know if you're moving in fear? Because sometimes we don't even know that's fear. So how do you know if you're moving in fear, or do you even pay attention to that?
Right. So, how, if there's anyone in the chat who wants to jump in and share greetings, Mayuba Devi, thank you for joining us. Yeah, how do you know? How do you know? Drop a message in the chat. Um, we could also include the link too for those of you who are ready, willing, and able to come on live. So I'll just post that in the chat so it's there. Um, I'll try and remember to post it every ever so often during the build this evening, so that way, if you want to jump on in on the StreamYard and chat it up and share, that would be great. That would
Yeah.
be great. I'll say, so I know when that fear is kicking in because I want to control. And I remember on one of the Chief Speak series from about 7 years ago, y'all. I remember on one of the Chief Speak series, he giving us great detail about, you know, dealing with trauma and anxiety and depression and how
Mhm.
those things, what those things have on, the effect they have on us. And one of the things that I learned then about fear is that fear also comes from the need to control,
Mhm.
the need to want to know and dictate every single thing that's going to happen next. What is it going to look like here? How is it going to look like there? And in many cases, we're going to talk about knowledge and knowing and how knowing helps to ease that.
Mhm.
But, faith is important too, right? Because
Yes.
you ain't got to
Yes.
know everything. You don't. You don't. But it's that not wanting to, or not wanting to relinquish control, but
That's
always in your head imagining that you have control over everything, and therefore the next few steps ahead of you, you also must dictate what happens, you know. And so I know when fear is kicking in, when I have that. And Anu Radio says anxiety is a big signal, and that is indeed true as well.
that's right.
That is indeed true as well. Anxiety does kind of bring on the fear, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, there are a couple of physical things that you could do with breath work and even sleep and rest and meditation that helps to offset that anxiety. Because, and I think it's important to know ourselves. That's why, I agree with you that knowledge is so important. And that leads us to Puji Jagalia, right? Because that's self determination. I make those definitions, I make those boundaries, I make those walls. A matter of fact, ain't no walls, no boundaries,
That's right. That's right.
none. Obliterate it. I'm talking to myself too. But there are things that we can do, techniques that we can utilize that will help us. But those techniques are only at a certain level. I think faith is like the deepest, largest, most expansive, most effective and efficient technique that we can use when it comes to moving fearlessly forward, or moving forward fearlessly, you know?
Yeah, that's right. You know, here in the chat, Abba Haru was saying that I know when he's in fear, when my heart is racing, pounding, and I'm facing an unknown challenge that threatens my life. You know, um, when I think of that, Abba Haru, I think of, sometimes because we strive to be fearless and we walk by faith, sometimes, I mean, we don't want to ignore the danger signs, because part of being fearless is also understanding when fear is a warning sign, when it's telling you, don't do that. Something around the corner is waiting for you that you're not, that's not going to be good. So, sometimes with that racing heart, it's because your higher power, the higher self sometimes sense the danger, So fear can, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's the warning. And it comes from that knowledge that Akoti Maria was speaking about. When you have knowledge and wisdom and understanding, sometimes you know not to walk down that dark alley in the middle of the night where they selling dope. You know what I'm saying? So, those warning signs, they can be healthy. That can be, there's such thing as a healthy fear. Um,
Right, right. Definitely a healthy fair. It's you know, there fair to a certain degree is a part of our hard wiring. It's a part
mm,
of our
that's
mechanism
right.
that's like a survival mechanism,
That's right.
right? But it's put there to kind of to make sure that like we do not go outside of the boundaries. We stay in the safe place, right? The ego kind of does that to us too,
Yes.
because when it's
Yes.
time to actually push forward and do something else, the ego's gonna step in and kind of like, nah, you're not doing that because we are not accustomed to that. That's the unsafe space. Don't go there.
That's
Stay
right.
here.
That's right.
Stay here.
That's right.
So it's a natural, it's natural, and there are times when you do have to acknowledge it, um but there are times when you have to slay
That's
it.
right. That's right. Because the fear you were just talking about is related to the fear of growth. you
Right.
know, just because we don't know how to do something, and boy, have I experienced that, you don't know how to do it. And now that I look back and think about it, the fear was not knowing how to do it. But being
Right.
fearless is learning how to do it, the knowledge.
The
Because
knowledge.
once you gain that knowledge, it's no longer anything to be afraid about. So yeah, they do go hand in hand. Master Mendel, like I was just looking at what he was saying. It says sometimes I can confuse fear with caution. Ironically, I
Mm.
may push forward without giving proper thought to my concern and act prematurely in an attempt to push through any perceived fear. So that makes a lot of sense. I believe I've experienced that as well. You know,
Right.
uh, right now
Right. Oh.
because this is so different for me. I'm pushing through it. You know how they say do it scared,
Yes.
because before this evening I would have said that I was afraid to be on the camera,
Yes.
but I can't say that now because I'm pushing through it. Um, and not prematurely, because there was a preparation that took place to alleviate some of that fear, and
Right.
and knowing that I was going to be enjoying the fellowship as well.
Yeah. I wish I had some like a little talk here. Knowledge is the foundation. I don't know. I cannot say now. Okay. Knowledge is the foundation of all things. So even when that fear does creep up,
Hmm.
acknowledging it, and knowing that knowledge is the foundation of everything, moving off of knowledge can obliterate that fear, because now you're using prior preparation, like and this is
That's right.
off of instruction as well too. There are times when we're asked to move, or we have to move, like Abba Herut mentioned. There are times when you know there's fear and his heart is racing and pounding. Sometimes our heart races and pounds because we have a challenge in front of us. It's not necessarily that there is actual danger, but it's just that we become fearful of having to do something new or learn something new, and it builds anxiety, right? That heart pounding and everything can lead to what Naya says is what she says, sweating
Mhm.
and what? Just getting
Mhm.
on with herself,
Mhm.
sweating and something else, sweating, anxiety, and speaking fast, right?
Mhm.
And those things can definitely take over. But I definitely think that that ease comes with that background knowledge, doing your
That's right.
research,
That's right.
right? And to Master Menelek's point, just that idea of pushing through because you perceive fear, you think it's fair, but maybe it's something else. But you try pushing through because he says, I push forward without giving proper thought to my concern and I act prematurely. So maybe there are times when we have to pause and say, wait, am I being told to decipher truth in this moment? Am I being told to decipher the situation in
That's
this
right.
moment rather than just saying, oh yeah, let me push through because this is just this is just a moment where I'm fearful and I'm not I'm not um I'm not confident in myself moving forward, if you understand. So we really have to, we have to be precautious in a sense that we're able to know ourselves to the point where we begin to distinguish when there's anxiety and when because we're filled with the Spirit, we're being given direction as to be precautious about the situation,
Mhm.
move forward carefully and with thought and wisdom, right?
That's
So,
right. That's right. That's right. Um, Abba Haru had also made mention that now, one of the things is he faces his fear by walking in faith, more or less, by knowing that the Most High's got his back. Because faith, in Meinhardt Word, it also talks about being fearless can also allow us to walk in faith when we are pursuing a divine calling or a purpose. However, fear walks hand in hand with being fearless because there's a knowing that removes the doubt. So when you know you are pursuing your divine calling,
mm,
you there's there's no fear there because you know that the Most High is orchestrating your footsteps,
yeah,
and that orchestration comes from knowledge. Because once again, when you know yourself, there's a knowledge there that you know how to walk, where to walk, when to walk, and that comes from preparation. I remember
yeah,
it was said also on last Strong's fellowship build that not being afraid because you were prepared.
right,
When you prepare for things, then you tend to be able to walk with self confidence. But there's also a fearlessness in knowing that when you're called to do something, that it's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to turn out for the good. It's all going to be good. So it's this topic on being fearless. um there was a time I remember my mother told me, she said, you don't have sense enough to be scared. And it was because I was always excited about doing something new,
mm-hmm,
and she's like, you're just gonna all guns blazing, you're just going for it. And I wouldn't say that was the smartest thing,
right,
because I could have been better prepared. I could have learned a little bit more about what it is I was pursuing, because that would have allowed me to be more successful in my pursuits.
right,
So, yeah. And then, as people we get older, I noticed that I'm not willing to take the chances and to do all the things I
yeah,
did when I was young.
sure,
And it's like a baby, when they start walking, they just start walking. They start grabbing fire. They start grabbing, things. They don't know it's hot until they get burned.
right,
So again, we have to have that wisdom of when to, and it's not so much as being fear, because I believe it was Master Middle like earlier uh, you said there's a difference between being fearful and being cautious, you
Right.
know, and that's very important, that we just don't go running into the burning building
Right.
without being prepared.
I mean, hey, unless you are a firefighter and you're walking in with knowledge of fire and the
That's right.
tools to get you out, save everybody and their mama and save yourself. And I mean, and only the Most High could impute that knowledge into you. So, but something you said earlier too, like just being prepared. Study, and what came to mind was the phrase study to show thyself approved. Just,
Mm-hmm.
staying on edifying self and gathering knowledge, not being a hoarder of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but gathering knowledge as it pertains to, how we're called to move and the vision that the Most High has given. Because I think, when it comes to fearlessly moving
That's right.
forward, if you are given a promise, you should not. You do your part. That's the most. You're not going to be given a promise and then you're just going to stand there and not walk, not move toward it or anything. You know, you have to do something. You know, and when I think of fair too, I think of fair being fearless too as a form of being childlike, because there is a bit of fearlessness from being naive, yes,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to children, but there is a burning desire to know, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I'll stretch out my hand and hold something that feels hot and looks fiery and just touch it. I don't know, but by the time I'm done touching it, I will know. That's what I find is so interesting. So you
Yes.
and I know we're always at the ready to protect them, which is necessary.
Yes.
But there's
Yes.
a level of knowing that comes from that exploration. And sometimes that's that mechanism of being fearful is what prevents us from being childlike and being able to explore the way they do, because they're just yearning for knowledge. I want to know, what is this? What's that? What's that? Okay, the heat of the oven is different from the heat of the campfire. The heat, like these
Yes.
are
Yes.
subtle not knowings that happen. And I know some people may say, okay, she's crazy, but not really, because there is that knowing. It's that, like,
Yes.
developing, those differences in subtle differences and variations between things that comes from exploration and just
Yes.
moving forward fearlessly.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Um, I was just looking at the chat here. And there's so many good things. Hey there, New Radio. How are you? Thank you for like, share, and subscribe. You know, this is such a wonderful way to enter into our Sabbath, because
Mhm.
there's always things that we need to focus in on that we take for granted. We don't think. I haven't thought about being, fearful or fearlessly moving forward for some time. But then I think about how important it is that we know the difference and when we're doing it, because it can be a hindrance when we are moving in fear. It can be a handicap from our growth and for being able to experience all that the Most High has laid before us. And then there's that being fearlessly moving forward, and that knowing what we've been talking about, and that knowledge. And a lot of it for me has come through community, because you have to be around people that you know and trust are on the right path. And how do you do that? How do you know? How do you trust? You know, you have to, and it's part of what Akoti Maria was saying about know thyself. You know, it made me think about one of the scriptures, and that says, "My sheep know my voice."
Right.
And we don't just blindly follow. because he also says to study to show thyself approved, like a Koti Morea said, which brings back always brings us back to knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
True.
And to me, that's a foundation of being fearless because it comes back to who you know, how you know them, and how they moving. And that's what's so beautiful about being in this community, um, because we don't we're not walking in blind faith. We are given the tools to know and the knowledge to everything that's being presented, and it's been shown and approved. So, everything I've learned since I've been in this community has been true. It's all come to pass. So I have become more fearless as I sit here today. And, it's all foundational, though. It's not like you just run out in the middle of the street and not look both ways, and hope that you don't get hit. It's nothing like that. So being fearless. And I'm wondering what being fearless looks like for y'all. Trying to really keep up with everything in the
There-
chat. So,
there-
Cote d'Ivoire, you can probably see it.
I got you. So I wanted to highlight Aki Darian, who says, I know I'm moving in fear when I'm seized up and thoughts are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like erratic, there's just no direction, just pure chaos there, thoughts are everywhere. That's when you get knocked off your square, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we,
Mm-hmm.
we get knocked off our square.
That's right.
Let's see if we can move through these because this is like 10 minutes ago. Anu Radio says faith without action is
That's
dead, so it takes conscious action. She's meditation challenge really reminded me how important consistent meditation is.
right. Mm-hmm.
It is, there is a form, transcendental meditation, right? Gives you the opportunity to use what's called mantra, or um, in in Kemet, the phrase would be pekao, like words of power. But those words of power actually, you're just giving one part of the brain something to do repeatedly so that you can create visualizations. And what's so powerful about what you're saying, faith without action is dead, you can do those meditations and have visualizations, but
Mm-hmm.
when, especially if you're visualizing, what do I do when I'm faced with fear? Or when fear cripples me, begins to cripple me, what am I going to do? And you begin to visualize, I'm going to take this step and move forward.
That's right.
But if you don't take the steps to move forward, it doesn't matter how many times you visualize,
That's right.
it's not gonna, it doesn't happen, because guess what? The happening doesn't happen in the mind's eye only,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it does begin there, right? Right? The thought is the fastest thing in the universe, and thought is the beginning of the action. But then you at some point have to lift your feet and move forward. We
That's
have to lift our feet and move forward.
right.
And I always think of the fact that the more we move forward, the closer the thing comes to us. Whatever it is that we're seeking. Again, especially if it is not based on our fleshly desire, but we're seeking a thing that Yah has promised us, Yah has charged us to accomplish. So that's very powerful. And we always hear it, faith without action is dead. You know,
Yes. Yes. That's really.
Abba Herud says, I'm open to the unknown realm of facing my fears now. Fear is needed to grow. Yeah, yes, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is needed to grow. True,
Mm-hmm.
true. You've read my mind, Safta. Yeah, I don't know what you said at 8:34, but you read Abba Herud's mind. All right. Anu Radio says it's great to see you, Safta. All right. The talk talk. Okay. All right. Let me keep moving. Welcome, Ima Akuya. Thank you for being here with us. Like, share, and subscribe. All right. Master Menelek says, right after Ahava, it's like entering your home with all the lights off and seeing a shadow that looks like a human. What? Once you turn on the light, it may reveal a coat hanger. Knowledge illuminates. Hey, yes, boom, right there. That's a visual. I could do a
Yeah.
drawing of what you just said, Pastor Manila, because that is a really
Oh,
good example.
I remember
And
waking up screaming because I turned over and saw my clothes were hanging on the door and the door was closed and just saw someone standing there. And I remember waking up the whole house because I thought someone was standing over me.
right. Well,
Yeah, that was,
I oh, sorry. I think there's like a delay. So I apologize. I'll pause. Can you hear me?
yeah, I
So,
can hear you.
okay. No, no, no. There is, I have to remember that there's this bit of a delay. So sometimes when I jump in to say something thinking you're done, I speak over you. So I apologize.
No problem.
I saw human and I said to myself, well, for those who think the shadow is human, good for you, because the shadows, what comes to mind is not human. Okay. So I always, for me, what I imagine is something other than human. All
Yeah,
right. So let me just say, and I tend to be the one who would see the outline and not necessarily, I wouldn't say not take precaution, because I have a sneaking suspicion that if it were human, I would take the necessary precaution. But many times I pause, and there's a sister I always say that too. I always say, don't just jump the gun. Ask questions. Pause
that's
for a minute. Look around the corner. Wait just a split second, and what you're seeing in front of you, you realize is not really what it is. It's something else.
yes,
Interesting. But the point is, light does illuminate. It sheds light. Knowledge sheds that light on all the corners. All the
yes,
corners.
it does. It does.
All the corners. So you woke up the entire house, huh, Sakta?
I did woke up the whole house. And, and it did come from something I had no business doing, which was watching a scary movie. So I went to bed with that on my mind. I'd already planted that, that thought, that fear was already there when I went to sleep. So
Right.
it was in my subconscious mind. And
Right.
it reminds me of how many times I've started to do something and I just think about all the bad things that could happen. And again, it prevents
Mm,
me from doing it. It's that
right.
unseen fear that can really handicap one. So I like the idea when you said stop, peek around the corner, ask questions,
Right.
um, because it can erase the fear. Once the light was turned
Right.
on, like Master Menelek said, now you see it's just a code on a
Hi.
hanger. So that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we walk in fear sometimes when it's really unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. That's down to when it comes to completing a challenge, completing a charge or a task or a
Mhm.
project. Yeah, we are definitely seeing the project as a shadow with three eyes all over the
Mhm.
skin and, several tentacles. And we're seeing it as this monster, a human in waiting, ready to attack us, or something that we should be
That's
running
right.
away from. We see those tasks and projects the same way, you know, and having knowledge does help to shed light on the how to approach it, how to do it, how to navigate, maybe a space that you're charged to be in, and things like that. um
Mhm.
and it's funny, we're having this discussion, but these are some of the discussions we have to have with youth. We do. We really do. And I think we're having them now because, I know it's a hospital. So a lot of us have come in with all those proper skills developed within us. I'll speak for myself that
Mhm.
I have come in with some of those skills undeveloped. and I'm learning them. And as I learn them, all I can think about is, oh my gosh, every young person I encounter, I have to share this with you. Even though they're gonna cock their head and say, what are you talking about? you know, but I'm still imparting that or planting the seed because they need to know these things from young. Those should be
Yes.
that should be just part of what is like natural training for them, you know.
That's
Definitely.
true. That's true. It's funny because I think we talked about a scripture that talks about wisdom crying from the streets,
Right.
in Proverbs. And, there's a reason why we have to listen to elders, and why we need to be taught certain things. Because, like my mother, when she told me, you don't have the sense to be scared. And what she was talking about is, I was supposed to go to a party. I think I was pretty young, and my ride didn't come. And it was after dark. It was not a good time in the summertime, not in a good area in the city. And I
Mhm.
actually got out, and she thought my ride picked me up when I actually walked to the party. I wanted to go so bad. And
Oh,
it was nighttime, and anything could have happened. So I'm like, okay, my ride's out front, Mom. And I ran out, because I knew she wouldn't let me go if she thought I was walking. But she found out, and she said, you didn't have sense enough to be afraid of what
no.
could have happened to you out there after dark on a weekend in the area we lived in. And, I didn't, because my mind was on getting to the party. And so many times our youth, I believe you were talking about, when we have a goal, and it could be good or bad, but when we have a goal, or we see something we're trying to pursue or get to, a plan or a purpose, when we're focused on just getting there, we don't see the roadblocks, we don't see the hazards, we're full speed ahead you know so that's kind of like why she was giving me that stop, look, and listen speech. Yeah, I had no fear. I was going to the party. That's all I knew. It was a party going on, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Up there. Yeah.
So,
That's where
yeah.
I'm going. I'm going right there. Yeah. I feel like I've had some experiences like that, but knowing, from a place of knowing. Like I used to go to Pan. So I used to go to the Pan tent. And for a very long time, my mother didn't want me to go there, but I used to go to the Pan tent to learn how to play the tenor pan. And of course, this is late at night. This is during Carnival. They celebrate Carnival in Grenada. And of course, I shouldn't be out there at all.
Hmm.
Now I know that. And now I would beat the younger Maria. Like literally would beat the younger Maria. Yeah,
Yeah.
for all of those people talking about corporal punishment, sit down somewhere. Spare the rod. Right? Um, but I used to walk and make up songs of praise. I'm just gonna be real. Songs of praise while I'm walking. And maybe it was from a place of being fearful and then just using songs of praise. I mean, like literally make up my own words because I was into like reading Proverbs a lot then. So I would just like pull from something I remembered and make up a whole song. Can't sing, but make up a whole song and walk by myself. Or there were times when I would just like say a song and I'm walking by myself, but it was never from a place of fear and ignorance for sure, because looking back at it, how many things could have happened to me? But it was always trusting and knowing that I could walk and move, and the Most High will always, always make sure that I'm covered and I'm safe. I don't know where that came from as a child. I don't know where that, from church, maybe not, but it was there, and I guess I'm saying that to say it's the same type of mindset that we need to have when we're moving, you know And Abba Harut said something here. I'm just gonna pause and then I'm gonna read through because there's a lot coming up. He did say it builds courage and character in a positive way if you
Mhm.
embrace fears. Very true, very true. Because like I think in order to move fearlessly, we have to know what those fears are. We have to embrace them. We have to be able to identify that this is what my fear is, because that's how we grow. That's how we build ourselves. You
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. And Abba Haru also said, being a firefighter helped me overcome most of my fears by trusting the process. And
Mm-hmm.
again, there comes that knowledge, because you were taught how to, not why not to be afraid as you were fighting fires. You were given the skills to be able to handle that. So, that comes along with a lot in life,
Mm-hmm.
um, when we are taught how to move and around certain things. I'm not fearful when I'm in a crowd, but I'm very much aware. I'm what, and I think that's wise to just know what's going on around you, in order to walk fearlessly. So, yeah, I can see how being a firefighter, that's like being a police officer, which, and I'll put a disclaimer out there. I do not think women should be police fighters. I mean, policemen. Um, been there, done that. And, the fear that comes with that for a woman, a lot of times they have to overcompensate because they don't have how am I going to wrestle down a 350-pound man if I weigh 150 pounds? You're not,
You can.
you know? So there is a fear there, and fear can lead you to doing things because you're in a situation you have no business in. Now you have to do something that wasn't really necessary, like maybe shoot him instead of throw him down and arrest him. Now he's getting shot, because you're afraid because you put yourself in a situation that you really shouldn't have been in.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Top tier speaker says that she says I know I'm moving in fear when I start stuttering and talking too fast, when I feel physical symptoms in the body and want to run or take flight. Run for cover. There is also a comfort in trust. Yes, this is true. There is a comfort. Greetings, Aki Zach. Greetings. Welcome, 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 welcome. Yes, this is back at the 8:32 mark. Zach says you get old and heavy and you start putting limitations on yourself. Oh, Peter Pan. Oh, that was a long ways back, but if you could build some more on Peter Pan, Zach, that would be great. You know. Mayuba Divi says it is also important to um, differentiate fear from danger and to recognize from which perspective we are looking at the situation. This is true. Master Menele brought up that point earlier. Yes, yes, indeed. Great, 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 great. Which is why I think that, so Akizak says this is why he thinks that so many say, move me out of the way so your work can be done. Ima Yakira says fear is a necessary part of the fight or flight component of a survival instinct, but remaining in that state causes serious hormonal imbalances and drains our vital force and chi. This is true. She, chi, chi, in all different ways. Indeed, it is true. It is that natural process, and like we can't ignore it. You
Hmm.
know, we can't ignore it. Master Menelik says, I've seen many children have a healthy respect for fire, even if they've never seen it before. There's a reverence for that heat as it gets more intense as you get closer. Yes, that reverence that's there. I can't help it. I know, like, we're way behind, but I gotta pause. Like, that reverence that's there is a knowing too. Chief speaks about it. Like that's why we go to every retreat, and we have to do what? We have to build a
Oh, yeah.
fire. We have to build a fire because it's so primal.
Yes,
The
yes.
respect and the reverence for the fire is very primal. And I,
Hmm.
I paused for a minute. I was like, it is primal. But then when you sit at the retreat and you look at the circle, I'm like, wow, that's the
Yeah.
one time it will always prompt us to sit in a circle. We naturally form a circle. And then you look around, everybody's like just really focused on that one point of illumination. There's a fascination with it. Um, yeah. Yes, fight, fright, or freeze. Oh, I thought it was flight.
Freeze.
Yeah. Top tier speaker says fear can protect us from danger, but I think the problem comes in when it's an irrational fear that blocks us from fulfilling our purpose. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Which is the fearless part we're talking about. Like
Hmm.
that piece where it's like you're not just bogged down in a space of, you know, okay, it's a problem or it's irrational and you're just hyper thinking or overthinking about
That's
a
right.
thing. Akizak says, speaking of fearless, Safta got that platinum shawl and your husband still. I think it's a compliment. He likes the platinum shawl. Bling bling.
Okay. Oh,
Yakira Eden says, so true, Akizak. The amygdala will stress the adrenal gland as it sends constant false distress signals. We fear our bodies into illness when we choose fear unnecessarily. Preaching to myself for sure. All right,
mhm.
all right. Yeah, I mean, we yeah, we mistreat this body so much. But
Yes.
Re- Puji Chakalia charges us to be self-determining. Define yourself. Define yourself beyond boundaries of the physical and the flesh. All right, because if we're made in the image and likeness, then it means that I have divine essence. We have divine essence. You have
Mhm.
divine essence, right? So then that means that I should not be moving in fear. So my brain is taking over. It's my, and just the fact that you say amygdala, now we're talking brain. Now we're talking, as Chief has taught us many times, Satan. Now we're talking that lower half of ourselves as opposed to moving from a higher consciousness. You know.
Yes.
Yes, Imanaya says you're shining beautiful. All right. Thank you. What? No, I don't sleep with a 45 underneath my pillow. No. But there is like a long bar thing underneath the bed, though. Anyway, Yakira Eden says, "Oh yeah, that's why I don't watch any scary movies ever." Yes,
Yes.
not a machete. The machete somewhere else. Oh boy, we are so behind. Let me see if we can move through this. We are. Oh, okay, we catching up. We catching up. Makuya says that's a good point, Safta, on how can creep upon us. Fear can creep upon us when we do things we shouldn't. Unnecessary fear, unnecessary fears.
Yes.
Yes, Akizak says I used to pay all my bills and look at what was left over was scary enough for me. I dang sure wasn't good going to pay for that in my life. What? Wait, let me reread this again because I did not read it properly. He says I used to pay all my bills and look at what was left over. That was scary enough. Okay, now I get it.
Yes. I get
Now I
it.
get it. It took me a like, what?
Oh,
Oh gosh, questions that will haunt you in your sleep. It should haunt you in your sleep. That's yeah, it should. Maybe that's some healthy fear. It should. Now you're talking my language. Corporal punishment. Oh, that's from that conversation. Oh no. All right, all right, all right, all right. We're moving on. It says, Akizak says, putting yourself in situations that will not be favorable can bring on fear and anxiety. Yes.
yes.
Yes. And Akoti Yafe says, yeah, with gravel marks on your face because you were someplace where you would be, be protected.
So who rubbed your face in the dirt? That's what I just pictured someone getting their face rubbed in the dirt.
Didn't listen. You didn't listen.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
when you don't have when you have knowledge, like I'm going back to that knowledge piece. When we have knowledge, there you don't have fear of the unknown. You know that fear of the unknown doesn't necessarily take over, is what I should say,
Mhm.
because as we're reading, I think we do have to acknowledge that healthy fear.
And when you do have that knowledge, another thing is you're prepared for what the outcome might be, and you've already weighed it out. Um, and that's something I know I've had to think about. Even when I go back to when I think about being retired, when I start to weigh out the benefits of being retired, and and it was so unnecessary for me to work an additional 3 years, when I could have been doing this 3 years ago. But again, I was um, I was stuck in the fear of not doing something I'd done for 42 years, you know. And what I didn't realize is how much fun I was going to have after retirement,
Uh,
And so, yeah, it just, it was unrealistic. And now I'm a little bit quicker to when I want to do something, I'll search it out, I'll look for it. Like when we did our challenge, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do these wall push-ups, and then after about 10 days, I'm gonna get on the floor. And Chief said, no, don't do that. He said, just stick to the wall push-ups. And you know what? He was right. Because I increased my number in the wall push-ups at the same time, but I didn't get stuck on the floor, because again, wisdom, just remember who you are, what you're made out of. And I'm okay with that because I can still do a lot of squats. So, the challenges and having fear in what you're being challenged to do, either you're going to grow or you're going to learn more about it so that you can move past it. So that brings us back to the question, what does moving fearlessly look like for some of you guys? Or I should say, some of y'all.
I think, did we ask that? I think we did. What does fear look like? For,
No, I said, what fearless? Like,
uh,
what does it look like to walk fearlessly?
right, all right, got you. But Master Benelek says, don't worry, Safta. By the end of the year, you'll be skydiving and doing flips at 3,000 feet in the air, and I'll join you. Make the most of your retirement. Live a little. Yes.
Hey, Aki, Zach, and Iman Quia can attest. I ziplined. I went ziplining, and it was pretty fun. And it got higher and higher each time. Well, we started off, I think, at the highest point and worked our way down. But yeah,
Right.
I'd do it again.
Do it
And
again.
yeah, skydiving is on my list. I've jumped out of an airplane before, so I'm not really scared of that. Again, that was back at the time when I didn't even think about what could have happened.
Okay. So there is a skydiving list being formed here. A crew of people. Yes, indeed. Imanaya, it seems like you're down. Uh, Imayakira Edom, it seems like you're down. Dr. Ahava, seems like you're down. Uh, Sister Maria is down.
Hey, we're
No,
sky, we're
we
sky people.
need a chaperone. Uh, we need a
We're sky
chaperone.
people. We can do this.
Oh my goodness. Before, Zach Latimer says, fear of not achieving my purpose will light a fire under me, and fear of coming back to this thing called Earth and doing this again is another one. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Having to go through another incarnation, and you know, because you didn't get it right this time. Um, yeah, definitely. That's something to think about. That's something to think about because even in moving off of faith and moving forward, knowing that we're here to fulfill a purpose, and we all have a mission to fulfill, right? We have a soul's mission, and we have a larger mission as a body of a community as a new, right? But we each have our own soul's mission, right? And that purpose should be driving us and dictating how we move through fear,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, you know, fearlessly, moving through
Mm-hmm.
whatever that fear is, because we have to get to the place where you accomplish or you achieve that purpose. You can walk through that manifest it, right? And not, like not manifesting it like, singing bowls and, you know, none of that. Just like doing
That's right.
application, you
That's
know,
right. Mm-hmm.
application. It's funny when I think about coming back to this thing, this planet again, this planet. At one point, I used to think incarnations were like that was a thing, and Chief had to some of his lectures. I realized, yeah, incarnation is not the objective. Coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about incarnations, it's how many times have you come? Coming back is not what it is. You know, it may seem like it. People may speak and make it sound like it, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. That's a healthy fear.
Yeah, that
That's a,
is a good
that's a
fear. That's a
fear.
healthy one.
Once you don't start overthinking and overthinking and getting scared and staying stuck in, yeah, I don't know, I don't think I could do this. I don't think you know, and then you don't move off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aber, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to read that. Go for it.
Okay, no, go through.
Uh, Abba Haru was saying exactly, Safta Ahava. I felt the same way when I retired, doing something over 31 years and not doing it anymore. What's it like working only for self? And that yeah. And what helped me is when I came into this community, and Chief and Anu promotes entrepreneurship. And when I first heard that, and while I was still working, I was thinking, but that's so much more work when you actually have to run everything. I'd rather just come in and do. And it was a lazy way of thinking, because what I didn't realize at the time is it was much more rewarding to work for yourself. I work for myself now, and I still have to get up every morning at the break of dawn. I still have a full day of
Right.
being productive, and the investment is so much more. And I'm not missing, you know, any meals. I still have as much as I had when I was working. So I don't even know where, it's like sometimes you don't know what to do until you do it. I think we keep going back to do it scared. Do it anyway, especially if you're being led and directed to do it. So, you know, what they say about faith is the substance of things not seen and the evidence of things hoped for.
The
Except, yeah,
thing, the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of
evidence of
things
things
not
not
seen.
seen. Yes.
Yeah, the nuns drilled that into me like real good. I'm so silly. But yes, this is true. And I thought of that. Like one day we should have a discussion about what that phrase actually means. Because I found myself going into like a long, I don't know, place where I was reflecting on what does that actually mean,
Mhm.
you know? Greetings, MGC Randy. Welcome to the space.
Yes.
He says, after you want to go through.
He says, as I heard mentioned before, fear is false evidence appearing real, versus understanding real danger is near, so is near. So guard your grill. The distinguishing between truth, real versus false and fake. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. False evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That's like what we just the opposite of the faith we just said, because it's the unseen that you hope for, you know,
Yeah.
but the evidence of things well, it's evidence of things unseen, excuse me.
Yes.
So, you can't see it, but again, when you have faith, you know it.
Yes.
You know it. And faith can bring things into being, you know, if, like you said, if you're working with the right uh um how does he put it, there's a bunch of things that have to come into play for
Right.
it to come out right, for the soup to taste good. It's certain ingredients that has to go into it, and that's same thing with faith, you can't just wake up one day and say, oh, I believe this is going to happen, I have faith this is going to happen. So
Right.
many people do that. Oh, I have faith. Oh, you have faith if you walk in front of that train, it's not going to make you part of the railroad tracks. Okay, I get it. I don't want that faith. Not nah. So yeah, but I agree.
Yeah. Faith works. Faith does not work hand in hand with stupidity.
There it is.
I mean, yes, you can have faith, but you can have faith and not acknowledge, just natural law.
That's
It's
right.
a law. If I walk in front, like, come on. Then you're talking about having faith. Uh, you're wearing it on your breastplate, but at the same time, you're ignoring law. You know, laws bring forward everything that we see in this universe, and faith functions off of a law too. I don't know what that law is.
Yeah,
I don't know if faith is a law in itself, but maybe not. But I'm certain it functions off of a law. It definitely does, and maybe it's the law of correspondence. You know,
yes, yes. That's something we should really get into one day, because I believe that as well. I believe that as well. Um, Yak, Ima Yakira Eden said, yes, skydiving. Yes, that is, yeah, you gotta be fearless. That's for sure. To jump out of airplane and hope your parachute open.
well, there's someone in the chat who's saying they are fine, they're okay, they're not willing to overcome their fear of skydiving. And I am shocked I'm shocked and appalled. I cannot
Yeah.
believe that's who's saying that. But okay. There's somebody else there. Let's keep reading. You'll see. That's not me.
Well, New Radio says moving fearlessly is not procrastinating. and being enthusiastic about every moment authentically. Um, that's real. Um, it just made me feel about, you made me think about this evening because, when I found out about doing this a month ago, I was scared to death. I was like, oh my God, as much as I talk, I don't want to do it in front of a camera. Who's going to be looking at me? How am I going to look? I don't like myself on camera. All these thoughts. And as time got closer and we began to study and just spending time in the community and fellowshipping, I thought, I started to get excited about it. And again, the more enthusiastic I got, the more excited I got about it, the less I was in fear.
Right.
So I definitely, you know, because I did want to put it off to procrastinate, well, can we not do it, on that week, but maybe a couple weeks down the line? So,
I got
so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That does happen. So it's not procrastinating.
hmm and just moving off of joy with every task and every thing that we have to accomplish,
Yes.
doing it with joy and a smile and, you know, being fervent about it.
Hmm.
I'm sure that definitely affects the way we internalize whatever it is that we're approaching when we face it with joy.
That's true. That's true. I'm growing as I'm sitting here.
Indeed. You speak a book, every one of these, if it's like, I know you learn more about each other, we learn more about each other, we learn more um about ourselves too.
That's right. So Imanaya say, when we going skydiving? And a new radio says, count me in. So it looks like we're gonna have a crew here in a few minutes.
We
Uh,
can't go nowhere if we do not have a brother.
that's right. That's right.
Can't go nowhere.
No matter how fearlessly we are, we need the light. We definitely need the light.
Indeed.
um, Ima Akuya says, when walking fearlessly, I move like I have supernatural powers and nothing can stop me. That's right. That's,
Hey,
yeah, that's that faith. That's for sure.
oh, that's that Kuji Chakalia too, right? Like,
That's right.
know who you are. You decide. You define.
That's right. So Akizak says, knowing who and what I am and why bloodline helped me to walk fearlessly. Also, humility helps me not to be foolish. That's that
Mm,
wisdom. That's that. Yes. Yes, that's definitely needed. Yeah. Humility. So you're not going to cliff dive into the ocean off of a cliff with jagged rocks below you unless you're a professional diver. That's it. I don't know why I pictured um, you jumping off a cliff into the ocean, Akizak. I don't know. Because you said the humility helps me not to be foolish.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, big thing, big points, humility.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Master Menelek says, oh, it keeps going up and down here. Um,
You want me to do
yeah,
it? Right. Master Menelek says, right, I forgot you were in special ops after. Oop. Oop. Yakira Eden says, this is the third time we mention it, so I'm down. All right, so we have a list. Ima Kuya says, I'm okay not overcoming the fear of skydiving. Oh boy. Well, it looks like we're gonna have to take some of us kicking and screaming. Oh, well, I guess you have company because Sister Yafe says she'll be the purse holder. All right. Abba Herut says it was weird for me facing the unknown in retirement, but I'm loving it. What was life going to be like after?
That's right.
Abba Herut says, I'm not going skydiving. I'll take the pictures for you. Okay, so we have a crew of onlookers. I can hear Ema talking about passing people as she skydives, talking about, hey, y'all. I can hear you, You know that, right? Master Benedict says, same here. Fear of living below my potential. Also, he also grew up with a fear of being a disappointment to others and to himself. Mm,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a big piece, you know. I think that's a big piece. I'll attach it to the list. I think after Zach started, that fear of not fulfilling purpose and fear of returning to the space, and now fear of living below potential. Definitely. And yeah,
Hmm.
I'll keep going. You have anything to add, Safta?
Um, I was kind of following, but same here. Fear of living below my potential. So were we on the one here with Master Menelek?
Yeah, we can move on. I'm
Okay,
just
no, because I was looking at that and I thought you
yeah.
was on the one after that. But I think a lot of things that I did was because I didn't want to disappoint people. And
Mhm.
so I did things in order not to disappoint people, but I got over it. I was fearless in that because it was more important to me, like you said, also grew up with a fear of being a disappointment.
Mhm.
So I remember, matter of fact, I had someone tell me when I was in high school that you don't want to go into the military. That's going to be this, that, and the other. You're going to go through this and that and the other. And so not only did I go in, but I picked the hardest branch I could get into. Like, I'll show you, it was one of those rebellious kind of spirits. But yeah, a lot of times I did things in order to not disappoint. Whether I was afraid or not, I was going to do it. Those dares like you want to
Yeah.
ride this big roller coaster, and I was scared to death to ride the roller coaster. But I did it because I was being called out, so I
Right.
did it. I did it scared. Now, if I could do the wrong thing scared, how much easier should it be for me to do the right thing scared?
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
I that's a good point because now it brings up the idea of the what is it rooted in? Like what are we moving off of? What is your motivation? That's the word I was looking for. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is that motivation?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's right.
Because at that point the motivation would be um fitting in. It would be being accepted, right? Depending on what age it was, like, when we're teens, all we want to do is be accepted by, you know,
That's
our world or the world. And the world is our world, and that's our friends. Ain't nobody, no parents, no relative, no, we don't care about that. Like, as teens, that's
that's right.
psychologically, that's the
That's right.
progression of how the mind and the psyche functions at that age,
That's right.
you know? So when we become older, and then, like we have to then examine those fears, as Abba Herud said,
Mhm.
and really think about the motivator, you know?
And one of the motivating facts for me is the fear of the Lord. And so much as and it's what we're taught in a new how obedience is better than sacrifice. So as Akizak said earlier, he has a fear of having to repeat this journey back here on earth. And when you fear having to come back, and I equate that to the fear of the Lord. Because if you do what you're supposed to do, chances are you don't have to come back. But if you don't, that's where that fear of the Lord comes in. Because you're coming back, you're going to have to do it over. And the circumstances could even be worse than the ones you were placed in the first time around. So, yeah, it's what motivates you. And I think that when I came into a new, I was really wanting to be a part of a community that stood for so much more than what I pursued in the past. So I had a fear of getting it right. I was motivated by becoming a part of something I knew I was called to be.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I definitely think the motivations, like we have to look at it. We have to, it's part of examining the fears.
hmm
It's definitely.
yeah. No, I was just going to say, when you look at what motivates it, the first thing came to my mind was ego.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times we'll be fear because it's injuring our ego. You know, we don't want to look stupid. I think it came up earlier. You're afraid to do something you never did before because of how you may look to others. They may find out that you're not as smart as you know they thought you were, or you know, yeah. So what motivates that fear? That can
Right.
be an even deeper root we need to dig out.
Imathea says, I already faced my fear of riding a horse several times, and the fear is still the same, so I'm good. Oh, I don't even know what to say on this one, other than I don't even know what to.
Maybe you should get to know the horse.
Oh,
Because when you, again, there goes that knowledge. I used to be afraid of horses. And when I start being around them, I mean, their hair is real prickly, which sticks you when you ride them, but the way they look at you. But horses are spirit animals. It's been said that a horse can sense when someone is a good spirit, has a good or a bad spirit. So maybe once if you got to know the horses, and maybe start out with a pony. But once you see what type of animal that is, you know riding it becomes a lot easier.
right.
It's
This is
just a
true.
thought.
Yes, Imakuya, get to know the horse. Get yourself a horse. White lightning. You can name it white lightning. Let me leave you alone. Imokuya says faith is the substance of things seen, the evidence of things not seen. Right. In alignment with
That's right.
we mentioned before. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yes.
Yes. I thought hope was a product of anxiety. Yes, it is.
hmm
Yes, it is. As we are taught in Anu, you know, we are taught in Anu, hope is a product of anxiety.
Yeah, to me, hope is like a gamble, you know, because you really don't know which way it's going to go, you know. You roll the dice and hope it, you don't crap out. I don't know. Yeah, I would say it is anxiety for sure.
Mm-hmm. It is, but for the sake of context,
Yeah.
faith without works is dead. Yes, that was Akizak says, who told you they were walking in front of a train? Good night. They were on some good. Some loud.
Just a figure of speech. That was that stupidity that Akoti Maria was talking about, fearlessness and stupidity don't go together.
No, at all. MGC Randy says, moving fearlessly to me means acknowledging the feeling of fear, being present, but pushing forward to accomplish the task, activity, or goal because following feelings is not as important as the purpose. This is true because then it goes back to who is controlling you and what's motivating you. You know, when it comes to fear and following feelings and so on.
That's right.
Yeah, because then are you invested? If you're just moving off of that versus plowing for forward based on purpose, and that was asked of me before, you know, why aren't you doing this thing? And my response is, like maybe I'm not motivated. Well, if you're not motivated, then something's motivating you. Something's causing you to not do what it is that you're supposed to do, and you should be functioning off of the fact that you're given direction, you're given a vision, and moving
That's
off
right.
of that, and not talking about motivation, which is not necessarily part of the divine makeup of who we are, you know.
That's right. That's right.
But Heru, this is in response to your point earlier. My feet hit the cliff. You know I'm joking. I'm still not going cliff diving. Oh boy. He said, but Harun says, if you come into a burning house with me, Akizak, I may go cliff diving. Oh, really? Is that a challenge? He said, okay, Akizak said he never committed to either, so I don't know how I got this off. I thought you did. I thought you said you were willing. I thought you did. Or maybe I just assumed because, the horseback riding thing. I know you were there, so I just assumed that you would go skydiving too. Oh
That's a
boy.
long way from ziplining.
Uh, yeah.
But to me, it wasn't because I don't know that hanging on to a line, flying across a valley that's maybe 50 to 100 feet below you, it's not that much difference than jumping out of an airplane. At least not to me.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think they would enjoy it.
They
The
they
now, yeah, I think they would enjoy it. You know what? I tell you what. The prelude to that. Has any of you ever did bungee jumping? Because that's real close. If you bungee jump, you're just one step away from skydiving.
okay. Yeah, I doubt anybody has bungee jumped or zip lined.
Yeah, Aki Zach and myself and Ima Kuya did the zip line.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, and they were. That's why when both of them said, "Nah, I'm cool," I thought, "Oh, come on, it's just the next step."
It's next step. Don't take the next step, y'all. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay,
Akizak says, "What does flat feet have to do with anything?" I missed it.
I missed that too. I didn't even. When did he say that? I missed that.
Oh,
What was?
because Abba Haru said, "I can't cliff dive. I
Uh,
have flat feet." Yeah, what does that have to do with cliff diving?
yeah, I don't know. Cliff that. I mean, it's an excuse. Stop it now.
That's it.
Excuses, excuses. Imakuya says I was fearful of going back to school, but now I want to go all the way in. All right, woo, woo. Well, good for you.
That's right. That's good.
Good for you. That's good. Akizak says not wanting to look stupid is huge. It starts young too, with wanting to fit in and being socially accepted. True. This is true. This is true. And at a certain age, that's why I think like psychology is so fascinating, because it's like at a certain age and stage in your journey, this is how you function,
That's right.
right? Not just biologically, like psychologically,
Mhm.
and maybe one day we'll find out, or maybe that has been established already. I just ignorant of the fact because I'm not a psychologist or a biologist, so I wouldn't know at all, you know. But maybe there is that direct connection between the psychology of how the young mind thinks and
That's right.
how the biology influences it, especially considering those biological shifts and changes take place at specific times. And then the thinking also shifts too. Definitely. Definitely. Imakuya says, you know what's after that is a good point. I should get to know the horse. Oh, you see back there. We're like so behind. We are behind. Just a couple minutes. Them joints up. Oh, Chief, Shabbat Shalom. Greetings and welcome to the space. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to share and build with Safta Ahava too.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Beautiful. Yes. Very beautiful.
Yeah, when we talk about not wanting to look stupid, Akizak, again, we go back to that ego issue, which it it makes fear into something that it really is a handicap that really does hinder us. Um, and a lot of times we don't even know that's, well, I don't say we don't know. We don't, we're not aware of why we're not moving. And the last thing we want to admit is that it's because we're fearful.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I wasn't sure if we had already caught up in the chat. Um,
No. So we were at the point where Akizak mentioned that horses are used for therapy. And then Chief Yuya said there are some genetic predispositions to fear that come from ancestral experiences programmed into us. Mm. When Chief comes, these back layers, and
yeah,
you didn't see this.
that's right. That's right.
See layers. Thank you. It is hardwired and requires surgical removal in most cases. You wanted to say anything, Safta, on this?
Yeah, I was just really soaking that up because it took me back to what we were talking about earlier when I said my mom used to always tell me, that I didn't have the sense to be afraid of certain things. And because she came with that, she came with that. And I didn't realize that until um, Chief said that there are a genetic predisposition. So she was afraid of things that she were taught to be afraid of, and they didn't all get passed down to me, which is why I moved the way I did in a lot of cases. So yeah, and I don't know if that was good or bad. I think I've
Right.
experienced both.
I I actually, when she shared this, I actually thought of the Willie Lynch letter, and I thought of Noir Male and the level of conditioning that has been, you know, put on the melanin dominant man, and the way the melanin dominant woman's mind has been, you know, I guess imprisoned. I mean, on her own account currently, but how there are things that have been whipped, so to speak, into
Hmm.
as she says, predisposition. I can't.
Hmm.
What other word can I use? Right, that genetic predisposition. There is an elder who speaks on there being parts in the brain that recall the experiences of those who had trauma, or it's not, the trauma is actually ingrained on the brain or stored genetically in the brain, certain parts of the brain um, that reflect trauma from experiences that have happened to our ancestors. Enslaved Africans, enslaved African Americans, and some of our responses and some of the things that we do and think or how we behave is a direct reflection of those conditions, right?
Hmm.
Or conditionings, so to speak. That's, that makes me think of that a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just in all the way we moved, and I think it's, now that I think about it,
Hmm.
I understand how that idea of, when you said the Willie Lynch letters, I think about the idea of how it was able to go through generations. It installed a fear not just to the people it happened to, but for generations after that.
Right.
You know, it just continued and continued, and till the cycle is finally broken. And that's just like church. Um, I was always taught, you have to go to church, you have to go to church. And you think that if you don't go to church, you're a bad person. And there was the fear there to step outside of what the church teaches, because now you're blasphemy, when people didn't even really know what that meant. It was just, again, generational curses that came through, and I can now really see how fear was a big part of those curses. Yeah.
Right. Hmm. That's why I knew it's a hospital,
Hmm.
because if something requires surgical removal, then it requires a trained hand, a trained eye, and a trained mind, to be able to identify that there is programming and be able to, you know, remove it with expertise. Because if it isn't removed, then yeah, it does exactly what you say. It becomes a generational curse, and it just keeps showing up, and it's funny because that's what genetic markers do. Genetic markers consistently show up over generations.
That's
All
right.
right. And they indicate something. They're indicative of something that happened before, that developed before. And I, like, it makes sense, like when we talk about, okay, I don't want to say anything about evolution because maybe it's not as we perceive it to be. But when we think about, just the way animals and even us as humans develop over time because we're developing in response to something, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I made a reference to the Willie Lynch letter and to, you know, some of the references in Noir Male, like how it
Mm-hmm.
describes what the melanin dominant man has been
That's
through, you know.
that's
And
right.
I always take it back to like things that I know as well too. I think about the so I like to look at just animal shows. I like to look at and study how animals are, how they function. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this about deer. They naturally, when they're born, they naturally do not have a scent. They do, and they do not. There's a particular um I don't know if it's pheromone, whatever it is, something functions in their body. It's part of their genetic makeup that they do not have a scent. So that helps to preserve the bloodline. It helps to preserve them, right? So when they're in the open and they could be hunted, they aren't because the number one predator, the vision is not as it should be to see it, and that enhances its smell, right? Which is a
Mm-hmm.
lion of foot. I'm talking about like, so because of that, and that's genetics, right? So I guess the point I'm making, I don't want to go off course, but as I read it, I think about just how genetics show up as a survival
Mm-hmm.
mechanism
Mm-hmm.
in all animals, and even as Chief is sharing that it no, yeah, it's
Yeah,
predisposition to fear,
that's right.
and
That's right.
fears come up because we were talking about it before. It's like it's a survival mechanism,
That's
right?
right.
Preserve self, preserve self.
That's right. That's right. And that's so strange you say that. Just like we were talking about children, until they come into that knowing and that kicks in, there is no fear. You know,
Right.
it's they 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 seem to walk fearlessly. Like when we were talking about the baby who will, as soon as they learn how to walk, they're reaching for things and doing things that could cause harm. And as they get older and they get a knowing and an understanding, then that becomes more developed in animals and children, I think. Because when you were talking about deers, I was thinking about how even when a mother first gives birth to a baby deer, how how they cling to the mother, and it's so easy to hide them and they don't move. Like when she knows there's a predator, and
Yeah.
she'll walk away from the baby and the baby won't move. It's almost like there's a sense that I just have to be still. I have to not move.
Right. And that may be that is probably another like um genetic predisposition, that Chief is speaking of. Like it is just I just think it's fascinating, like seeing how it shows up in all of these different ways as mechanisms, right? Which is the point here. Like it's a is being used as a tool for something, right? Survival ultimately.
Right, right. And it also makes me think of the conditioning that this culture, this society has built into fearlessly as a woman. Because there was a time when women didn't go out by themselves at night. They
Right.
didn't. The men always drove them to the store and
True.
did everything. But society has all of a sudden began to make, this woman feel so fearless about everything. And they've done it over a short period of time in my lifetime. I've seen women go from being protected and cared for to now taking the leading role, which is so out of balance. And we were talking earlier about a healthy fear and an unhealthy fear,
True.
and so it just makes me think about, because even like, I think we were talking about it when Brother Lowe was breaking down one of the movies about how this little 100-pound woman, now she can walk into a bar and, beat up every man in the bar. She's fearless, where we know that's not a reality,
It's not.
but this is just one of the ways that they're placing the seed in our minds as
Right.
women to where they get bolder and bolder and more out of balance. And again, there's not a healthy fear there, you know, um, when it's not even a reality.
It's
So,
not. So true. It's not.
yeah. So, this subject on fearlessly moving forward, um, there's so much, there's a balance that comes into play as we've talked about, having knowledge about what it is we're fearful about, where what motivates that fear.
Right.
Um, Also, what it looks like when we are fearful and why. And I believe one of the inserts that we were looking at, I was looking at it as I was going through, you know the the information for the bill was in Mine Heart Words. If our subconscious mind is full of fear, then logic and even pragmatic thinking will
Right.
only confirm and support our underlying fears. So it all does start in the mind, as we were talking about, the seen and the unseen. But
True.
having the knowledge and the preparation and the faith, we can walk fearlessly into the things that we're called to do, without getting out of line. Because it's when we get out of line is when, there should be a lot of caution. We should be fearful, you know. So,
Right. Well, yeah, then you have a reason to be fearful.
mhm,
That's right. Because you didn't do the right thing.
that's right.
That's right. In response to Chief's statement, Akizak says it makes him think of epigenetics and changing our surroundings and physical and mental diet to help overcome. And this helps that statement helps to support some of what was shared much earlier this evening. Just what we consume and all of that and how that influences our thinking. Um, Master Menelik said, I saw, okay. Aki Zach says, the fear of running from pain and not wanting to be humiliated, but not practicing humility and replacing it with arrogance. Peace Chief says, I was about to say Peace Chief again, sorry. Chief says, well, Peace Chief again. Chief says, some are not directly taught. Even animals genetically evolve to understand danger based on new threats. True. These things are not taught but locked in the genetic survival code. Very true.
Oh,
Yes, very true.
mhm, mhm. When I was talking older about when I was younger, I was more fearless because I don't want to say I was dumb, but it was a lot of things I didn't know. So I
Right.
would blindly walk into them. And fortunately, a lot of times the worst thing that could have happened didn't happen. But as I got older, um, and what I consider to be wiser about certain situations, I didn't put myself in the same situations knowingly as I did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, there comes that knowledge and that wisdom again,
Right.
you know, and you learn, you live and you learn.
Yeah, that sometimes that experience has to happen. But as she says, someone is not taught directly. There are some genetic markers. There are
Mhm.
some genetic codes embedded in us, right? That may be what is um is responsible for what Zach mentioned earlier, where there are young people who aren't taught fire is this thing,
That's
but
right.
they have a natural reverence for it. Like there's something in that line or lineage that is aware, um, and they move that biology is aware of what fire is. Like
That's
it's
right.
what it is at its core, right? So they're moving off of something a couple layers deeper than another child who has gained that knowledge and wisdom from like actually touching it. You
That's
know,
that's right.
somewhere along your lineage, you maybe somebody was a fire kindler. I don't know. There's just that knowledge of it there. You know. Akizak says genetic survival code. Now that makes me think of people manipulating words and attaching fear to those words and actions to begin to psychologically program folks out of that code.
Hmm.
Mm. Oops. I'm sorry. Let me see. Uh, okay. And then he says, does an animal in the zoo have the same fears that its counterparts have in the wild? Which makes me think of the environment and how they will train that animal to fit the narrative. So the natural fears that they should have are trained out of them, right? And she's response is that animals in a zoo are programmed to think um, their captivity is their safety, similar to the way people cling to the infrastructure of Babylon. We
Hmm.
once ran from the slave boots, now we vacation. Now we vacation on them. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slave boats, rather. We once ran from the slave boats. Woo! Okay. That was take us there. Whoa. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And there's that comfort that keeps us
Yeah.
from growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And prevents us from seeing that we're embracing captivity.
That's right.
We're embracing captivity. We're embracing all of you know, the previous things that would make us walk off a deck and take our lives, right? Because we refuse to be held captive or to be mistreated. And then, you buy into this thing. That's deep because that just took the correlation to another level for me. The fact that we ran from slave boats and now we vacation on them. Whoa.
Yeah.
Programmed to think captivity is safety.
Yeah. And I think, now that I think about it, that's what fueled the sharecroppers. Now they're free, but they stayed on the land, still working for nothing for the master.
Oh,
Because yeah, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just like myself and Ava Haru was talking earlier about being afraid to retire. Here we are selling ourselves 9, 10 hours a day for pennies on the dollar, for it to only be taxed, and then to feel afraid to walk away from that. That's kind of the same thing. And but once you do walk away, it's you it 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 takes a while before you get to understand that freedom, and
right.
before you do become fearless, you know, because now the fear's gone. Now that you're actually experiencing what it's like not to be, that slave vacationing on the boat. So it's, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Never thought about that.
Right. Right. Right.
Never thought about that.
Wow.
So
There's
it leads me to wonder what else is there to look for. I mean, I'm excited about it instead of being afraid about it at this point, because the more I learn and the more I want to know, you know. And
Right.
it, I remember an old saying, and I can't remember, I just remember it from childhood that said, "What you don't know can't hurt you," and how backwards and how untrue that is. What you don't know can't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's what you don't know that does hurt you, you
True.
know. So,
True.
and again, that's where we find fear in the things we don't know.
Right. Yeah. There's yeah, there's so much in terms of like we could keep talking about that idea of fear and it being connected to not knowing, you know. And maybe it is a bit of what Aki Zach mentioned earlier, you know, switching up the code on us by telling us one thing and making us believe, yeah, what you don't know can't hurt you. Lies,
Mm-hmm.
lies,
Right,
lies.
right. That's,
Because we're here in Anu. Anu is a hospital,
that's
and
right.
yeah, how much of it is because of you know being in this situation because of what we don't know, what we
Yeah,
didn't know.
disobedience, misinformation, and then sometimes, you know, I have to ask myself, it was certain things I didn't want to know because I wanted to keep doing what I was doing, and if I really had to acknowledge the truth about the situation, then I'd have to admit where I was at,
Right.
so sometimes we choose not to know, and the fear of knowing would put us on a whole different level. So again, there's so much to you know moving fearlessly, and as we've been building this evening, I really have come to understand, number one, why we have the order within a new that we do, and why that it flows the way it does. Especially now that I really look at just being a woman. There's so much, you know. I don't want to use the word stupidity, but I guess I just have to be honest and say we do stupid stuff all the time, and
True.
a lot of it is from not knowing. And I really believe that if we were to really look at why we do what we do, it's not because we're fearless. It's because we just, we don't. In this day and age, we don't really have to reap the benefit of the repercussions that were once in place for us as women. Like, for example, I remember when I was young, it was always said that a woman should be a virgin till she got married. She
Right.
shouldn't have kids till she got married. That you wouldn't get a good husband if you did that before. And there was a fear, in a healthy fear, of women not being promiscuous. And now women fearlessly go around, you know, um, just doing things they shouldn't be doing, and they're fearless because of what's being accepted in this society, in this day and age.
True.
So things are so out of balance. I believe that there's a lot of understanding of what it means to be. There's a lot to be understood, I should say, in what
Right.
fearless really looks like. I feel fearless in the fact that I can believe and trust in a community that's going to lead me and guide me in the right direction. I'm not afraid of the unknown because if I just follow my lead, if I follow what I'm told to do, then it's all going to be good. and that's fearless for me.
Right. Right. Yeah, there, when you speak about that portion on women moving out of this cocky sense of fearlessness, I guess,
Hmm.
and just being open and free with something that's sacred and should be guarded, you know, um, that that eventually hurts. It
Hmm.
hurts. It hurts your value
Hmm.
in ways that you don't even recognize until you you're too old and it don't matter anymore.
That's right.
That's how I'm gonna say it. You know? So, and in
That's
that
right.
and on that note, then you just have to pray to come again. Or
That's
even
right.
pray, affirm that you're gonna come again and have a whole other experience or find some way to redeem yourself. But yeah, it's true. It's
Hmm.
true. So for if you're listening and it's something that, you know, you have taken lightly, don't take what's after is saying lightly at all. At all.
And what I feel, and I'm thankful, even though I've made the mistakes, I've done what I've done, because you know what? I have the knowledge to pass on to my grandchildren and to those that are coming after me, so that they don't make the same mistakes. And we can change that genetic coding that's embedded in the DNA going forward. And that can be reestablished. It may not happen for a couple of generations, but if I can be you know, uh, an instrument in that, it's worth it, because the Bible always talks about this generation and generations to come. So there is a value, you know,
Right.
in wherever you're at, to be able to start something, to get back to what's righteous. We don't have to keep digging the hole. We've been digging a hole for a long time. You
Right.
know, so that gives me a feeling of being fearless, only because of the righteousness that's involved. But not just getting out there thinking I can do any and everything, because I've done that, and I know where it got me. You know, being fearless in the type of jobs that I took, because I was looking for the money.
Right.
And there were certain things that really devalued me as a woman. You know, and having a fear of really embracing and uplifting a righteous man, because I didn't know what that looked like. So now it's there's so much more, and it's a joy to be able to be fearless in what is right, you know. And I want to say that word, fearlessly righteous, but there's a certain knowledge that has to come along with that. And, just like Chief always tells us, if you read it and you can't teach it, you don't know it. I
Right.
feel like if you've heard it and you can't apply it, you don't know it. So I know one of the goals in the new is not to just hear it, but to walk in it,
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot to being fearless.
There is. It's so many layers, you know. And
It
I mean,
is.
even Chief pointed out, I'll just skip forward ahead, um, just because for the sake of time too. But Chief mentioned that there is yin fear and tang fear. That was a tongue twister. You did it up first. There is yin fear and tang fear. Yin and tang. Yin and tang or yin and yang? Yang, sorry. Yin fear and yang fear. So tang fear, what's that? Some fear, so y'all laughing at me now with my tang fear, because that's not a thing. Some fears motivate you to right action. That's the yang. some fears paralyze you, which is the yin. Uh, Natural fears motivate, and manufactured fears paralyze.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense that the fear that motivates the right action would be the yang, because that would be the masculine. That
Mm-hmm.
would be the directed, right? And
Right.
the fear that paralyzes is the yin, which would be the passive. Yes, I read it wrong.
Yeah.
But, yang, yeah. And it is this reminds me of a segment that Chief did a while ago. This is like one of those Chief Speaks. Um this is one of those Chief Speaks segments that used to be held on like a Sunday. I
Mm-hmm.
think I shared this
Mm-hmm.
before. Like, I used to literally post up inside a Target, sit down, lay out everything with my notebook, and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. This segment was, but this segment, I don't think it was as old as this one, but it wasn't the first time I heard it. This segment was "What Have You Built," which is, I think it's an old Commander Day, but this excerpt I heard from another Chief Speaks before, and
Mm-hmm.
it speaks about when we entertain a false prophet. And so it says, like, when we entertain a false prophet, which is a thought that seeks to deceive you, right, into
Mm-hmm.
thinking one
Mm-hmm.
thing but it's something else. It is a representation of what we desire. That's based in error, or one desiring something that you have no business desiring. So it makes me just this what Chief has shared makes me think of I think it was NGC Randy. Our NGC Randy mentioned above, we had a conversation um about the false, what is for like a false fear,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to discern that. And so this is even more knowledge to add to it, so that we're able to decipher what fears are motivating us, or what fears are moving us to freeze, or to be paralyzed, or the fears that are causing us to pull on courage and
That's right.
forward and move
That's right.
forward, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
That's right.
Thank you, Chief, for that, because that
Soda.
no, yeah, we're gonna add that to our tips, so we don't have three
That's
tips, we
right.
get four. Embrace
That's
the
right.
yang.
That's right. That's
Embrace
right.
the yang fear.
And it makes me think about something when we first started studying about I the Bible scripture that talked about, and 7 women took a hold of one man, because they just wanted the name, and there was a fear of you know being single. There was a fear of not having a master over your household at one point. And I think about the yin fear and the yang fear, and they're different.
Right.
And I think about, you know, I never thought I was going to be afraid not to have a covering, but once you've had one and you understand the beauty of it, you want that. I never thought about, you know, um, a fear of not having community. You know, some people may say you don't miss what you never had, but once you've had it, and to not have that, it's like losing a part of yourself. And that's how important community is. And so many people have lived their life without community. They have no clue, of the secure. It's not, I won't just say security, because again, you know, as we've been building on unity and community, um, in this past strong, and you think about how We have our study groups, and we have times when, we one of us might just break down. You know what I'm saying? We might have an issue or a problem, and you don't have a safe place to go to
Right.
to to be able to fearlessly be able to be transparent, whether it's the women to the women's group or the men with the men.
Right.
We have a place to go, and it's going, and we can only become better because there's so many minds that are working together as a likes, that you're bound to get the right answer. So
Mm.
to not have that, like every dawning, it's funny because when I roll over, I never pick up my phone. I never used to pick up my phone in the mornings, but I look to see the greetings. And that might be the only thing I do, but just to see everybody say good morning. So once you've developed community, you've developed sisterhood, um, you've developed what it's like to be a woman with a covering, to be
Yeah.
protected, to be guided. Um, there, you know, there's, and that's where I was thinking about what Chief was saying. There's a yin free and a yang fear. You know,
Yes.
um, I can truly appreciate that in a community you can become fearless. If you're in your role, you know what I'm saying. You on your square.
Hmm.
You're doing what you call to do. And again, I keep coming back to sitting here with you. As many uh, times have I sat and just watched and looked and listened and learned
Hmm.
and think, oh, I couldn't do that. To be actually sitting here and doing it today, it's a fearless move for me. So, and
Great.
everybody didn't answer. We asked what it was like to be fearless. Some people came through with an
Yeah.
answer,
Well.
um, because I know that we were talking about some things to do in order to show up fearlessly.
Right.
But everybody didn't say what it looked like for them.
For
Because
them.
what it makes me wonder is, do you even recognize when you're walking in fear? Do you even know that when it's hindering you, keeping you from doing what you need to do? Because that's something that I've been able to begin to observe in myself.
You know, um, mass. We skipped over some points above, but that some of it was laughing and joke, I think. Um, the oh, Master like in many like in Target, yes, because it was a quiet spot at that time in the day, and I just needed a quiet spot at that time in the day where I could study. So yeah, Target it was. Target it was. Thank you, top tier speakers, for posting Isaiah 4:1. That was the biblical reference that you shared a little bit earlier. She says the fear of reproach, communal reputation used to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. That was when people was getting put out of their community because someone got pregnant and wasn't married, and she brought disgrace on the family, and yeah, and the community, um, I guess we call it shun her,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to be shunned, and you knew when a woman left home it was because she was married, because she
Right.
went
Come on,
from under.
father's house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And it was a disgrace if you did not. You were known as a loose woman. You know, I actually remember that being the case for my older sisters. Hmm.
Oh, them being identified as loose women for, because they did not leave the home or they had to.
No, they did not leave the home unless they were married. My two older sisters, um, yeah, that was one of the precursors for them leaving home, not to go off and go to college somewhere.
Got
You
you.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
my stepdad, he was really adamant about that. When you move out, no, you won't be living on campus. You'll be living with your husband. And that was a long time ago, and that changed before I actually grew up and moved out of the house. But that's why I was relating to where when Chief said the communal reputation, it used to mean something, you
Right.
know. And again, we talked about I grew up during the time there was segregation in school, so we still had communities where everybody on the block knew each other, because we
Yeah.
all went to school together. Everybody's kids went to the same school, same church, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. What a while back on Chief's, I think it was his YouTube channel. He posted, this is a different form of communal, the community acknowledging that someone has done something wrong to sully their reputation, and they holding them accountable for it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That instance when it was shared, I realized, yeah, community reputation in that community um was indeed valuable. But I'm not a part of that community, so like, what do I know about that? But it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a young man who stole something.
I
This
remember
was
that.
in Ghana. He stole something, and they done tied him up and put him
Mhm.
outside to dry.
I
Like, put
remember
him outside
that.
to dry. And I've seen footage of people doing that. It's almost like, I guess some people will call it public humiliation, but it is like publicly writing something out and publicly acknowledging I did this, and having other people watch, like, see what it is that that person has done and acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I would say it's not as valuable if it's done just randomly with in a neighborhood versus within a community, because
Right.
then values are different. What
Yeah.
you hold as important is different, but you do it in your community, um it becomes something very important.
Mhm. Mhm.
It does become very important. And just like pulling on the idea of that communal reputation, then communal reputation, when she said communal reputation used to mean something, I think in part two, that is because community used to mean something more than just the people who live next to me, or the people who think they conscious just like me, so we are part of the conscious community, so then the values are lost there.
Mhm.
So communal reputation means nothing then,
Right.
because community means nothing.
Yeah. 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 The community judged the people in the community.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Chief answered, fearlessness looks like being in tune with past, present, and future. No fear when your path has already been ordered in front of you. Fear is replaced by unity with the supreme intelligence. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's where that faith in knowing, when you have a divine calling,
Yes.
you're not distracted by all the, as you said earlier, all the roadblocks. You're just looking straight at the purpose. And
Right. Oh yeah, that
mhm,
was funny. Yeah, you don't see the roadblocks in your peripheral. You
that's
just
right.
what's the vision?
Hmm.
It's outlined for you.
That's right.
This is true. Give thanks for that, Chief. Give thanks for that.
Yes, stood up for that. Master Menelek says, sometimes I don't recognize when I'm moving fearlessly until I have a near miss where I think, wow, I could have died just now, like nearly getting hit by a bus or instinctively protecting someone or something. Yeah.
I see.
hmm And Chief says, it's not the action of shunning because of an act. Being an uncovered female is the disgrace. I have told you the concept of grown single women is indecent in and of itself. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yes. And he goes on to say, uncoupled men or woman, I'd a matter of are a matter of indecency. We are not rabid animals. Even brained dead zombies move in herds. That's right. what, what, what an example.
Come through with the example.
Yeah, I mean, it don't get any clearer than that,
Yeah.
you know. And they don't feed on each other either. That's that is so true. Darian says fearlessness for is stepping into the unknown with courage and fearlessness for is stepping into the unknown with courage and knowing the way we live is more than enough light to get us to get through. That's right. That's right. And I tell you, it's a good thing to be able to be a light bearer when you're given that light and you're able to move forward with it. It allows you, um, that fearlessness that Chief was speaking about earlier. Because I don't know, it's funny how you can stumble your way through the dark for a long period of time
Right.
and not even realize you're not afraid and you're stumbling in the dark. And I guess because you can't see what there is to fear
The fear.
until the path is given light, and now you see all the things that you know you can have that healthy fear for, and begin to line up with what is right. Top tier speaker says moving fearlessly to me is when I'm able to live in a flow state.
When
When I'm able to live in a flow state. So what are you flowing with?
hmm.
How are you flowing? That would be my question.
While we wait on that clarification, moving fearlessly to me is when I'm able to live in a flow state, and Safta asks, what is that flow state? What's that flow state? What's dictating that flow state for you? What do you mean by flow state? Um, I wanted to pull on something Chief says, where it was being an uncovered female is the disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that grown single women who are uncovered, you know. And we've talked about this many times, even within Anu, like that uncovered, being uncovered is like a well sitting uncovered, open, you know, and a well is a vital source of water
That's
for
right.
a community. Vital. source of water for a community. In some cultures,
Mhm.
wells are representation of the hub of, the community, the
That's right.
hub of socialization, because that's where women would come, draw water, sit, talk, share. I mean, how many things have happened near uh, wells in scripture in the Old Testament? Think about it. How many
That's
things have happened near wells in the Old Testament? And the women are always there. They're always there. There's never been, so just thinking about that and correlating it to an uncovered well that is defiled, that can be defiled, right, is not protected, then can you drink from that well water? You
right.
can't,
Hmm.
you know. You don't know what that being uncovered leaves it open to everything,
That's right.
all of influences.
Hmm.
I think about what water represents, and we are feminine and we are water. So being uncovered, that means that anything can program you.
That's
That's
right.
going back to the Japanese scientists who did all that study with water. Let's think about it. Like anything and anyone can now program you,
That's right. That's
shape
right.
your mind. And
And
that has
even, and even though we're supposed to be able to flow, even a river has boundaries. It flows in a certain structure. It doesn't overrun the banks. It flows in a certain fashion. Top tier speaker says, when I speak about flow state, I'm just speaking about moving without fear. Like for me, not being afraid to dance in front of others. Okay, okay. But what I thought about when I first saw that was, again, what is motivating that fear? Are you afraid you're going to look stupid in front of others? Are you
Mm,
afraid that you're going to provoke something in someone else? I mean, and I'm just saying, think about it. You don't really have to answer that. But again, I think about flowing, and I'm picturing a river, and the way it flows, it follows a current. And I think about, just like I had a fear of being on camera, and
mm,
and I have to think about what motivated that fear and what motivated me to overcome that fear. Um, so it's just something, when something sparks that emotion of fear, that thought, how can it harm you? What is it threatening? And what is it going to hurt? Is it going to hurt your ego if somebody laughs at you? Is it going to, or what type of dance are you wanting to do that you're afraid to do in others? And I'm just asking that, not, you know, um, expecting you to answer, but it's just thoughts that come to me because that's what I think about. When I think about when I'm moving in fear, Akoti Maria made a good point when she said, "What motivates that fear? Where does that come from?" Because that's something we have to look at.
mhm. Master Menelek is kind of touching back. He's saying he's going back to Akizak's earlier comment on uh, fear of looking dumb as the modern idea of being coupled. So I guess there's an attachment to um, being coupled or mated, and that what is being attached there is that idea of being dumb, looking dumb, or limiting your freedom, right? Limiting your freedom by being mated,
Hmm.
which is so false, right? That's the false prophet, right? Like, it is being, like, we could talk about so many stories of women who have written pages and pages of poetry pages and pages of poetry that we have acknowledged, that, well, not we, but the American society has acknowledged, and they passed away lonely, passed away no protector, passed away, have not given anything to a man, have not offered anything to a man, um, and therefore have not had balance in their life at all, you know. But that part is hidden. They hide that part,
Mm-hmm.
right? They hide that part.
That's right.
We talk about women who are entrepreneurs and women. Look at the women who are entrepreneurs. Just look, even the ones who singing about being single. And it's not only one, because I know everybody likes to talk about that one famous one who talks about all the single ladies and they're married. But it's not only one. There are many cases of whether they're famous actors, famous, um, you know, even Lisa, I think her name is Billy Yu, said, mentioned something the other day. And I said to myself, you are married, but yet still you're condoning, um, like a site where women can find friends and live like the Golden Girls. And we all know the Golden Girls reference, right? Bunch of women who are living together who have no direction, like no woman. And I know many of them talk about, okay, they were married before, but they have no covering. And that becomes a standard. That
Yeah.
becomes the thing
Mm-hmm.
that everyone wants to live now. It was so rude, and it was rude and offensive because I'm like, you are a married woman and you are here endorsing this for other women. Why are you lying to them? Don't lie to them, because you will not leave the husband that put you in the position you are to be the the woman you are and to have impact, which is the name of her like company. And stuff. You wouldn't give that up to be a Golden
That's right.
Girlfriend. You would not. Come on.
And most of the women who speak of things like that, you know, they weren't in real relationships. You know, and most of the time, as far as being in a righteous homestead, a righteous covering, to know what that looks like, it's not a common thing in our society. So there's so many dysfunctional relationships, you know, but to desire a functional, healthy relationship and to know what that looks like. I mean, I don't even know what that looks like as far as experience, but now I know what it's supposed to look like. I
Right.
have an idea and it's desirous. You know, any woman that says she wanna, die lonely and by herself, she lying. She lying. Women try to use children and friends and everything to take the place of having that man,
Right.
a real man who is her covering, her protector, the one that guides her, that motivates her to give her
Right.
best and to do her best and to become what, not just sit on the sidelines, but to keep living, you know, beyond when your childbearing years are over, you
Right.
still have a lot to offer. And to be motivated by that. I can't think of any woman, I don't care how much money she got, um, can replace that with money. I mean, unless she can order something off, a magazine, something she might want to plug in and cuddle up with and be warm. But outside of that, it's not fulfilling, and it's not. You can't. I guess you can't really desire something that you don't know about. So I just encourage people to get to know what they're missing. You know, because it's much more to it than the Golden Girls, and they were to me. It was a bunch of lonely old women. I'm sorry. And they wanted men. That was the thing. They all wanted a man. Even the little old one wanted a man.
Like I'm over here with a invisible highlighter,
Yeah.
underlining, underscoring what you say because this is so true. It's so Master Menelik says the trick hurts males as well. Chief Yuya has spoken about the misnomer of the opposite sex and not the complementary. We're not opposites fighting over the steering wheel. We have our own roles.
That's right.
Indeed. 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 And that's like that's the that's the at the center of the fight, right? It's at the center of the fight because it's like, I'm strong. What is that? You know, I guess that famous symbol of the woman, you know, flexing her biceps or whatever. Like, you know, it is the idea that I could do what it is that you do. And some women want to say better too. Like, I can do what you do. I can step in your role and leave, never mind my role. I can just step over and take your role. There's so much confusion, and she says there's a growing divide um, between those of us who are the righteous, tribal minded, and the modernized ambassadors of spiritual insanity and cultural chaos.
Yes.
Well said.
Yes. Can you imagine if there would have been two women in the garden? Where would we be? You know, with nobody but the serpent to get in on the party. I mean, that would be so sick. I've never been one to have roommates when I was younger. And I remember my mom used to always say, two women can't be in the same house. Well, then I didn't realize what sisterhood was, because I do realize two women can be in the same house and be happy, and work together, work in unison, But as far as I keep thinking about a society that would try to replace the place of a that a man has in a woman's life, and yeah, it is chaotic. And it makes me wonder how our society got that way.
Right. The chief says and they're profiting off of that chaos too. And
Yeah.
makes my blood crawl at this moment, like, is the fact that they're reaching beyond. When you see certain ideas and programming are being it's being marketed to our youth, you know that they're going for the mind. They're
Hmm.
going it's a hostile takeover at this point.
That's right.
It is, because and so that denotes what, well, we talked about it, victory, because victory indicates a battle, right? Victory indicates a battle. So there's a battle, but there will be victory. There will be victory. It may not look the way, it may not look the way others envision it, but there will be victory over it. You cannot tell me that cultural chaos cannot stand. It will never stand. It will implode on itself.
That's right. That's true. That's true.
It will. I mean, now we actually have, and I think I shared this before, like, there are hospitals engaging in the and condoning the changing physical and biological changes in young people just to
Hmm.
maintain that cultural chaos.
Hmm. Yeah.
How is that? That makes no sense. If someone has an identity crisis, then you talk to them and you shift that perspective by actually speaking to
Hmm.
what the issue is, speaking to having more confidence and having more value for self.
That's right.
But you don't do that. You just say, "Oh no, never mind the self. It means nothing. It has no value. Chop and screw it."
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
That's it.
crazy. That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Yet, when someone comes into a room and they alter order, or they come into a space and they alter order, we
Hmm.
have the sense to pause and say, "But wait, no, think about this. This is how you came across. This is what you did. Fix it." How come we could do that? But when it comes to young people who are confused, are you following me, or maybe I'm just off on a
No, I get it.
like? It's if you're reasoning that way, why aren't you doing it across the board? You're not, because you have an agenda.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, you do. And she says like men are dying from broken hearts and loneliness as well. True. He says the destruction of our most easiest function, getting together, easy is like basic, simple, has become big business. We are both craving one another but unable to touch.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so sad because some of our youth are even falling into this fad because it's a fad. It's the thing to do. You know, um, to raise their hand and say, "Oh, I'm bisexual," which is no such thing. You know, but at the same time, just because that's what the new fad, that's the new thing,
Right.
and all these new titles they're putting on. But as far as men who know they're men and women who know they're women, or I should say, men who know they're male, even, and women who know that they are female. They may not be feminine, but they're female. Um, again, like he was saying, he said, we're unable to touch. There's been so much garbage that has been promoted to keep us from functioning like we're supposed to as heterosexual male and females, that
Right.
it's now that, if you ask me, that's scary, because not only will it not promote building nations, but not only is it hurting, the bloodline, because mainly they've managed to infiltrate, I'll say, a lot of melanin people. I'm overly surprised at one point, here we go back to community. Even though it wasn't, I'll say, a functional community, it was still a community of melanated people where that was unacceptable. You better not tell your daddy that you don't want a woman, and you better not tell your mama that you don't want a man. You know what I'm saying? That
Yes.
was unacceptable. And they did everything they could to for us to buy into that. And they started with it on TV. As even Chief talked about in the Burlesque Society. Some of the main actors, they start putting them in dresses,
Right.
making it acceptable. And it was so slight, and it build and it build and it build. And, I'll never forget the first time I seen same sex people kiss on TV, primetime TV, not HBO, not, but on regular primetime TV where children are watching. And I thought, okay. But it started way before then. So yeah, it's it definitely needs to we have to separate. We have to come out from them. We have to, if we're going to protect our children, our future, we definitely have to come out from them. And I think it's smart when children no longer put their children in public schools, but begin to shield them from what this Western culture is now infiltrating the minds of the young before they even know which way to go. You know, I read something how they talk about Angela Jolie and Brad Pitt. They have a daughter named Shane. And for years, she decided she wanted to be a boy, and she had a boy's name, boy cut, boy clothes. But recently, as she's maturing, she decided she wants to be a woman, a female. Nobody's talking about it. There was no talk about surgeries. There was no talk about changing her birth certificate. Uh, but when she decided, no, I don't want to be a boy, I want to be a female, she was able just to shift back into her role. But yet you have a couple like Gabrielle Union and I forget her husband's name, but they're publicizing the fact that, oh, we're going to let our son become a woman by on his birth certificate, which is a lie. But I'm just saying that's how deep it goes in order to come after a certain group of people. Why is that? And you begin to see that there is a fear that if they don't totally destroy a certain group of people,
Right.
that there's something coming. So that's and I just look at all the different ways that they come after our children, and that just makes me more wanting to know what it is I have to give my grandchildren, because they will know different. I mean, now they have moms and dads, of course, but if they ever decide to come to Granny, to Safta, to find out what she thinks, I'll be able to share. And of course, they'll, at one point or another, hopefully by the time they get a certain age, they won't have fallen into that pit hole, you know, but they'll still, have some type of desire to know something different than what they're being shown.
Right.
So, yeah.
And we have a huge mission, you know. We have
Mm-hmm.
a huge mission, and that is to actually do what it is that we're here to do, which is to reclaim and bring back those who
That's
are
right.
lost and beguiled by Babylon.
Yeah,
And it's important. It's important to as you say, to live a life that's separated,
that's
right?
right.
And come out of and be in a communal space where we don't have to compromise.
That's right.
Nothing is put in front of us that will compromise or even cause our youth to think twice,
That's right.
about their own purpose and their culture, you know.
That's right.
That's, I think, um, right culture and having the right mindset is crucial. It's
That's right.
important.
It's
Yeah,
very.
it is. And um, you could choose wrong all you want, but you're still on the losing team. No matter how it looks.
That's right.
How it looks, but it's sad and unfortunate that we can't get around to the simplest function or the easiest function, as she said, which is to be compliments.
That's right. That's right. Akoti Yafe says our unification is the real reparations. And I couldn't agree with that more. Um, to be able to come back together as we were created to be, as a complement to each other.
Right.
That's the beginning of, you know, if you give a bunch of folks a bunch of money right now, all they're gonna do is some of them gonna have operations and get them implants here and there and everywhere. No telling what they're gonna create if you fool around and give them too much money, you know, because there's, and I'm not gonna say I would go that far, but there was a time when having a bunch of credit cards and a nice car and fancy clothes. And, you know, I didn't know what the value of real wealth was
Yeah.
before coming into community. So Yeah, reunification is the real reparations. You know, if somehow, but people got to want it. You know, like Chief said, too many of us are having vacations on them slave ships. You know, to get out of debt and to you know um, to do. And I tell you, when you make up your mind to be to get out of debt, it's like getting off drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cold turkey you got to go through, and sometimes, I mean, I went through a time of like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I used to spend money to feel good, go shopping. Um, Akoti Yafe can relate to that. You feel bad, go shopping, go buy something pretty, go make yourself feel good. But now it's like, but I'm learning to shift my energy to when go work on that battle plan. Go visualize what you're working for. Go and begin to actually see the manifestation of the work that you're putting in. Go and don't sit around looking at TV and looking at magazines and walking through the mall. No, go and look at your battle plan. Go and look at where you're going to be in 3 years. Go and look at a year. Matter of fact, you know, you don't need another pair of shoes. You need a piece of land.
Right. That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
It's you talk a book when you say they people have to want it. When you say if you get money, then that's what they're gonna take the money to do. Well, yeah, maybe give them money so they could do that. Maybe that's part of the agenda too,
Hmm.
right? Because if that happens, then that like they'll be actually fulfilling what they intend, which is to continue to separate, so
That's
we
right.
don't have complements. So there's always this chaos and this imbalance and this
That's right.
fighting for the other one's role, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. This. Go ahead.
No,
No,
I
I
was just gonna say this has been just as we've been sitting here building and looking at some of the comments. I just there are so many things we take for granted and we don't examine. And like you said, there's so many layers to what it takes to begin to really become a community and a likes and to get on the same page and understand that what is happening in a new is not good for one person, it's good for the whole community, from the babies on up to the head of the household, right on up the line to the most high. It's not like any, and I've been through a few different religions, and um, this is really an experience that, and by far it's, I'm not going to say, yeah, I'm going to say it's one of the most difficult because it calls you to get real. It calls you to unmask. It causes you to, the humility Akizak was talking about.
right.
And it causes you to work. And it's an unending work that's very rewarding, though, because I sleep much better. I don't need sleeping pills anymore. I don't need something to go to sleep and something to get up. And, you know, um, and in this time in my life, it's just so much more, you know. Like they say, it ain't over till it's over.
True. It's the culture.
Hmm.
It's the all the you say you sleep better, and it's the culture. It's all the components of what is required for us to move in one accord and move like ALIs, not just call each other ALIs, but we're moving in one accord. How come all the sisters know sundown? That's a thing.
Yeah.
Right? You say something, you know that's a thing. What does that mean? Be inside. Like and like I'm just saying, there are all these parts of our culture as a community that forms us and shapes us.
That's right.
Um, and it affects our health, it affects our psychology, it affects our mentality.
Yeah,
Um,
it does.
and I will go as far as saying it affects our aura,
That's
you
right.
know, because it reshapes you. It reshapes your thinking completely too. Completely. I mean, I think this is a story for another night
Yeah,
because now
yeah.
it's o'clock. We're getting ready to shut it down and wind down. But yeah, I think there's just so much value in, looking at the things that we invested in, and me considering the things I invested in and I placed my faith in, which and those things were false prophets.
That's right.
They were false and they gave me nothing but an unending cycle of having to feed, having to pay for something, having to, and no results
That's right.
whatsoever, right? No moving forward at all.
That's right.
I'm always moving from a place of fear because I fear this thing is going to happen, or that's something is going to happen to me, or that's off of fear. If I'm moving knowing that I'm of divine essence, and obedient and following law and following up on those edicts and living my life a certain way, there's certain things that there's certain places fear can't hide inside of us, inside our minds, or
That's
even
right. That's right. And before we do go, I remember us having a discussion about things that we can do to move forward fearlessly. And one of them, number one, was know thyself, know that you are made of divine essence. And I thought that was so true because just like we have been talking for the last few minutes about community and who we are and what we believe in and how easily we have become defiled outside of our own community, trying to mix and match in a culture we don't belong. So, I think that was so important to know thyself and know that you are made of a divine essence. And I think that's really one of the first things that we have to do to walk forward fearlessly.
right. The other one that we have is knowledge, right? Knowledge is a foundation. So being able to do your research, edify yourself, just um, knowing, yeah, knowing the details and the background about whatever it is that you're pursuing, and pursuing because it's a promise and a vision, not because it's a lower level desire.
That's right. That's right. And I would say the third one, remain focused on the vision so that your peripheral will never see the roadblocks. And that, from everything we were saying, when you're looking at that end result, of course you have to plan
Right.
and be prepared. But when you're focused on the vision, you're not tripping over, the stumbling blocks along the way. And if you do fall, you get up, shake it off, and keep it moving.
Hmm. And the last one we added, because Chief gave it to us,
Yeah.
identifying that yang fear versus that yin fear. Knowing the difference, right? That's that deciphering, being able to see the truth
Hmm.
of a thing, like being able to identify which fear is fear that's healthy because it's motivating me to action versus the fear that is passive and it's just going to paralyze me. It's going to keep me in a passive space where I don't move, I don't function. So those are closing tips for this evening for you to continue to move fearlessly through 2023.
Yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this space with you. Um, Yeah, I'm okay.
Yes, you are. You made it. And you made it, and yeah, we did good. It was long and a strong one, so that's good. Peace, everyone. Enjoy your Sabbath.
Peace.
Sabbath. See you again soon.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you for reminding me, because I almost forgot.